Tom and Sarah had what everyone called the perfect marriage. They were high school sweethearts, the kind of couple you see in movies. They lived in a charming little house in the suburbs, with a golden retriever named Buddy, and a life that seemed painted in warm, happy colors. Tom adored Sarah. He worked hard as an architect, not just to provide for them, but to build the future they had always dreamed of together. He remembered every anniversary, brought her flowers just because, and his world truly revolved around her smile. For 15 years their life was a beautiful, predictable rhythm. But lately, something felt off. It started with small things. Sarah, who was usually an open book, became more private with her phone. She'd angle it away from him or quickly lock it when he entered the room. She started having girls' nights more frequently, coming home late, smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't his. When he'd ask about her night, her answers were vague, just a collection of, "It was fun," and "We just chatted." Tom pushed the nagging voice in his head aside. This was Sarah, his Sarah. He trusted her completely. He told himself he was being paranoid, that after 15 years, a little space was normal, even healthy. The shift became undeniable when Sarah started talking about a new colleague at her marketing firm, a man named Mark. She mentioned him casually at first, praising his innovative ideas and dynamic energy. Soon, Mark's name was sprinkled into every conversation. "Mark thinks we should try this new restaurant. Mark told the funniest story today." Tom tried to be supportive, suggesting they invite Mark and his partner over for dinner. But Sarah always had an excuse. "Oh, he's really busy," or "maybe some other time." A cold knot of dread began to tighten in Tom's stomach. The breaking point, the moment the perfect picture began to crack, was something incredibly small. It was a Tuesday evening. Tom had come home early, planning to surprise Sarah by cooking her favorite meal, lasagna. As he was grating cheese, he noticed her gym bag sitting by the door. She'd said she was going straight from work. Curious, he opened it, intending to put her sweaty clothes in the laundry. But the clothes inside were clean, neatly folded, and bone dry. They hadn't been worn at all. The cold knot in his stomach turned into a block of ice. Where had she really been? The question echoed in the silent kitchen, and for the first time Tom couldn't ignore the answer that his heart was screaming at him. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every excuse she'd ever made, every late night, every guarded text message, played over and over in his mind like a horror film. He felt like a fool. He decided he needed proof, not for revenge, but for his own sanity. He needed to know he wasn't going crazy. The next day he called in sick to work. He knew Sarah had another late work meeting planned. It was a lie he'd heard a dozen times before. This time, he wouldn't be waiting at home. He parked his car down the street from her office building, his heart pounding against his ribs. He felt like a spy in his own life. At 6 p.m., he saw her walk out, not with a group of colleagues, but alone. She got into her car and drove, not towards home but towards the city center. Tom followed, keeping a safe distance, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. She pulled up to a fancy downtown hotel, one he knew they could never afford. And then he saw it. A man stepped out of the lobby. A tall, confident man he recognized from a photo Sarah had on her work's social media page. It was Mark. He opened the car door for her, and she leaned in and gave him a kiss. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It was a deep, passionate kiss, the kind she hadn't given Tom in years. In that moment, Tom's world didn't just crack. It shattered into a million pieces. The air left his lungs. He just sat there, in his car, watching the two of them walk into the hotel, laughing, their arms wrapped around each other. The image was burned into his memory. The man who had trusted with his whole heart, who had built his entire life around this one person, was suddenly a stranger, watching a movie about someone else's life. He didn't feel anger, not yet. He just felt an overwhelming, hollow emptiness. He drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through his tear-filled eyes. The perfect lasagna sat cold and untouched on the kitchen counter, a sad monument to a life that was now a lie. When Sarah finally came home around midnight, humming a cheerful tune, she found Tom sitting in the dark living room. "Tom, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" she asked, her voice light. He didn't answer. He just looked at her, and in his eyes she saw it all. The cheerfulness vanished from her face, replaced by a flicker of panic. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tom finally spoke, his own voice hoarse and unfamiliar. "How was your meeting at the hotel, Sarah?" The color drained from her face. Her mask of normalcy crumbled, revealing the guilt and deceit underneath. The silence was deafening. "Tom, I can explain," she stammered, the classic line of every person caught in a lie. But Tom just shook his head slowly. "There's nothing to explain," he said, the emptiness in his voice chilling her to the bone. "I saw you. I saw everything." He didn't yell. He didn't scream. The quiet finality of his words was far more devastating. The small, seemingly insignificant detail of the clean gym clothes had unraveled 15 years of shared history. It was a stark reminder that sometimes the biggest betrayals are revealed not by a loud explosion, but by the quietest of mistakes. The perfect marriage was over, and the house that was once filled with love and laughter now felt like a tomb. The days that followed were a blur of painful conversations and heartbreaking decisions. Sarah's attempts at apologies felt hollow, her tears a little too late. The trust, the very foundation of their relationship, had been pulverized. Tom realized that the person he loved had been a character she was playing, and the real Sarah was someone he didn't know at all. Moving on was the hardest thing he'd ever had to do, but he knew he had to. He had to rebuild his life from the wreckage, piece by piece. He learned that forgiveness isn't always about reconciliation. Sometimes it's about letting go so you can find your own path to healing. It's a painful journey, but one that leads back to self-respect and the hope of a new beginning, a future built on truth, not illusions. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. We'll see you in the next video.